Welcome to our review of OnOne Software's Perfect B&W. I pulled an image into the program, so let's go ahead and take a look and see what we can do. Here are your presets, and you've got a pretty nice selection of presets here. Some of the presets, like if you take a look at 19th century processes, one of my particular favorites, they'll have a whole bunch of settings already applied to them. For example, as we'll see later, we can play with borders and apply borders to our images. So if we choose this one, albumin print, it's automatically going to put a border on there, which we can go ahead and change also later. So you'll have a few of these 19th century processes which will have borders placed on them, and you can, if you don't like them, you can just get rid of them. Daguerreotype clean. Daguerreotypes I really like. Love that old-time effect. But you get 19th century processes, the fundamentals, 20th century classics, silver, those come on in, and you get also a bunch of others. Yeah, you get 21st century modern digital. Wait for those black and white. There we go. And high-speed documentary. So these guys are going to be real contrasty and stuff, and some of them can be quite grainy as well. Hint of color. This is one of my favorites. I love that kind of colorized black and white effect, which can be really quite nice. Okay, and you also get Hollywood portrait. So if you're bringing a portrait shot in, well, first thing you might want to do is work on Perfect Portrait by OnOne, and then once you have your settings done there, just click on black and white. It'll maintain all the settings you did in Perfect Portrait, and then you can start turning it into a black and white, which is nice. And also True Film, so you get some film effects here. Kodak Panatomic X, I think that's ISO 32, and on and on and on. What do you have down at about 3200 ISO Kodak T-Max? So it's a good place to start. I'm just going to start with us right here on the default settings to get us going. Don't need this anymore. Click on that triangle to collapse that panel. And here we go. Now we have some selective adjustment tools right over here, and depending on what you're going to do on your image, you might want to do these right away to get yourself going, because if you put a vignette in, if you decide to add blending modes between your original image and the black and white, it can make it pretty difficult to go back afterwards with these selective adjustment tools. So let's take a look at these first anyway. Brightening. Each of these top brushes you select here, you have your options up on the top. The W is if you have something like a Wacom pressure sensitive tablet. You set the size of the brush, you get your nice arrows here, slide up and back. Feather, how strongly do you want the effect to come in? Keep this on perfect brush. It makes the edge effects much nicer. And you also have a reset brightness just in case you screw it all up. So I'll keep the amount on 20, brightness, and maybe I'll bring up the brightness of this area. And I've got that set on 20. It looks like it's not quite bringing it in enough. Let me bring it up to 60 and see what happens. Not too bad. Now you don't need to click on this that says reset brightness. If you go a little bit overboard, for example, I'll put the amount up to 100, and that's a little bit more than I wanted. Actually, that's not too bad. I might go ahead and leave that. But let's take a look at the leaves. If I come in here and brighten these up, and I think it's a little bit more than I wanted to do, just hit your regular keyboard shortcuts, Control Z or Command Z on a Mac to jump back one step. Brightness. This is for contrast, this brush, and likewise you have choices: more contrast, less contrast, and the usual suspects here for adjustments. Let's try the rock here, and just for demo purposes, let's ramp that up, whatever, 89, and bring that in. Now usually what happens if you're increasing contrast is that the brightness starts going down. So what you would have to do after this, if it obviously gets too dark, Control Z, Command Z, is go back and hit it with the brightness brush to brighten it up again. So generally, if I know I'm going to be working on contrast, I absolutely do that first because I know later I'm going to want to brighten this up again. This brush is pretty cool for details, adding kind of sharpening. Let's again pull that up to 100. Let's try the rocks in the foreground, and you can see the sharpening effect coming in. Too much, but again, just to take a look there at what that can do. So that's for sharpening. And this is kind of a very targeted brightness, they call it. This works a little bit differently. You get crosshairs, and what you do is you click in the image and then drag left or right to make areas of your image darker or lighter. But you do have to be careful with this, because if you come into areas that are too bright or too dark, it doesn't work. For example, let me go right in on the dark part of the leaves here, and you will get this message. Not going to work. Click on a more vivid area, which generally means you have to get into a mid-tone. Like for example, a sky area. Now I can darken that up, pulling that down, getting a little bit darker, a little bit brighter. I like it a little bit darker, so I'll do that. Likewise in the rocks, if I were to click on a dark area of the rocks here, yep, same thing, not going to work. So I need to get into kind of a mid-tone area of the rocks. Let's see if this one works. Nope. I have to get a little bit more mid-tony. Nope. Let's get a little bit brighter. How about that one? That'll do. And then I can start bringing down the brightness of the rocks. You see how it's not really touching the sky at all when I'm down here? So that's pretty cool. Selective color. This is to bring color in selectively, and this thing is pretty cool. I'll usually bring this opacity down to I don't know, maybe 15. Maybe 15 is too much, but if I click and drag in here, you can see I'm starting to very subtly bring back a hint of color into the image, and this is, again, as I say, an effect I really like in black and white images, is the colorized effect, is bringing a little bit of that color of the sea back in again. And let's just jump back one step on that one. Your usual hand tool, magnify tool. Okay, let's get a little bit more detailed here. And the tone, here we go. Global adjustments we're going to be making now, not those little selective brush adjustments. Brightness, pretty straightforward. Contrast, first thing I would do is work on the contrast, not the brightness, because again, more contrast you bring in, the darker the image gets. So get your contrast about where you want it first, and then balance it out with the brightness. Bring that up a little bit. But see, here's what I'm talking about. Now this brightness area up here got way too bright. So I might go over and start over on this one and not touch this particular image with anything. So you got to be careful with all these brushes. If I know I want to make global adjustments to brightness, then I'm going to need to do this over here. And contrast. Maybe not so much the color, but brightness and contrast especially. If you're going to make global adjustments, do them here, then go back with your brush to make selective changes. But even at that, you have to be careful, because if you come down here and you put a vignette in your image, then that's going to change the whole dynamic of anything you do with your brushes down here. So you've got to give it a little pre-thought here as to what you'll be doing. Brightness and contrast makes the blacker, makes the whites brighter. Bring those guys back down. And also working on shadows and highlights. Detail, again, is like sharpening. Okay. Color response. This is really, really good. I kind of love this one a lot. You get a lot of cool effects. It's like putting different colored filters over the lens of your camera when you're shooting with film, and you will see different effects come in. And one nice one is infrared. I love having that effect. Again, this area is kind of a mess over here. So what I did was I came back to the brightness brush, and I clicked Reset Brightness, and that did it for me. At some point later when I finish the image off, or I'm getting ready to, I may very well come back to that brightness brush and maybe some of the others, contrast, etc. So yeah, so play around with these, and likewise you can see the slider settings change as you get different settings in here. Find one you like. I usually like the infrared one because it makes the skies look so much cooler. And then once you get your effect, go in and play with it a little bit more. That really kills the sky. I'll pull the blue all the way down. What about the aqua? Pull that down a little bit. Okay. Color response. They're like colored filters on your lens. Tone curve works the same way as it does in Photoshop. Put a S-curve in there to punch up the contrast on your image. And if you don't like it again, hit reset to get out of it. Glow. This is an effect I usually like on black and whites. Kind of depends. It works kind of nicely on portraits also. Amount of the glow, to ramp that up and see how we do. Wow. Okay. So now I'm going to kind of go nuts and basically ruin the image, yeah? Now, you also get options here as to how you want your blending mode to come in, and you can hover over the different effects and see them come in. Yeah, I kind of like the lighten one. The screen is nice. That's what we originally had on this. I think I might, for the heck of it, just stay with that. Okay, film grain. This is pretty standard. You should know that also. You get different film types to select from, to putting in your grain, and you can also determine the size of the grain, how strongly you want the grain effect to come in. I'm going to turn it off on this one. There's something doesn't feel right about having a glow and film grain, but maybe. Toner. This is really nice. I particularly love this one. Turn this one on. So now you can add a certain tint to your image, and you can work on either highlights or shadows. Click on the color swatch, and you can pretty much determine what you want. We're on highlights now. So if you wanted something like that, it's a lot, really enjoy this effect. Make it darker or make it brighter, and just pull it on in, which is really fun. I love this one. Increase the hue on that. Drag it up here to make it almost kind of a more sepia thing. You can save your color setting by click on Add to Custom Colors. For the shadows, what do we want to do? What would happen if we just went straight black? Whoa, that's kind of cool. Whatever. Let's save that. Here we can do the balance. Which one do you want to come in more strongly? Do you want the highlights effect to come in more strongly, or do you want the shadow effects to come in more strongly? I'll pull it up a little bit up to the right-hand side here. And you get presets also, so you can just go to Sepia 3. That's nice. I kind of always like that. Selenium is nice. Iron Blue 4. Let's do that one. Kind of cool. So these are really great fun. And half the time what happens is you'll choose maybe a preset here or make your own combination, and then you want to go back and play with something else. Like maybe you want to play with the brightness and the contrast. Maybe it's a little bit too bright for you. You want to bring it down a little bit, or even up a little bit. So it's a great fun, this program, and produces really nice effects. Vignette, you should have that on all black and white conversion programs. And not only can you place a vignette on there, but you can choose from a different style: normal, subtle, or soft. Let's go with normal, and we can ramp the brightness up or bring it down for a dark vignette. Bring that up. But again, if I'm going to be keeping a vignette on here, my little selective touch-up tools with the brushes gets a little harder to do. Do that one. We can place a border on it. Click on the borders, and we'll have a nice selection. I've got the antique deckled border here. It's going to crop the image, yeah? So if you pull down the opacity, you'll see what's cropped out start to come back in again. Get a nice selection of different categories, sloppy borders. OnOne used to make this program called, what was it called? Photo Frame. Yeah, where you had your thousands of different frames. They've cut that program out, but you still can come back and get back to it a little bit anyway. You do have some functionality here for putting borders on. Okay. And sharpening also. And you go ahead and set your sharpening as you will. I've got a nice glow on this, so I don't know, I'm not sure I want to really. If you're working with a portrait that you're doing and you want to sharpen that up a little bit, you get this choice, ethnicity. So choose the ethnicity of the person that you're working with in the photograph, and that'll give you a default setting for your sliders, and you can go back and change those again. And blending, this one, I've been experimenting with this one. These are like blending modes between your original image and the black and white, and it seems to pull in a lot. See, it seems to pull in a lot of the original image. Lighten is kind of cool. That's kind of a cool effect. A colorized effect, actually. That's kind of nice. Screen effect is nice. You may very well find an effect here that you really, really love. So absolutely take a look at blending. I haven't seen this option in the other two big power players in this black and white field, Topaz Labs and Nik Software. But very interesting to play with. So give that a look and see what happens. You can also pull back the opacity of this a little bit, but as you do, you'll get back to your original image again. That's kind of interesting. Kind of an interesting effect for just basically doing nothing but screwing around with the sliders and seeing what happens. It's kind of nice. Very nice program, Perfect Photo Suite. I wish it had as many presets as they do in Topaz Labs' program, B&W Effects. That one has just so many. It's incredibly great. But this program does have this very nice, fun thing to play around with, the blending. It's got the glow, which I really like also. So of the three big power players, Topaz Labs and Nik Software and OnOne, you've got really nice things in all three of them. So it's a really tough call. I don't know. I mean, on my website, I've got a 15% discount for this program, the OnOne program. I've got a 15% discount for the Nik Software one, and they all have their strong points. I think, I don't know. After all is said and done, I think I have to go with the Nik Software Silver Effects Pro. It's got these fantastic little control points you can place into your images to make extremely selective changes, which I'm knocked out about. But I really wish I could take the good parts of all three of these programs and just simply put it into one. Then you would have the 5-star, perfect, unbeatable program. And we'll see you later.